The Aqua Mizer toilet tank flush system is designed to function in many different styles of tank toilets. This includes most toilets that flush with either 3.0, 1.6, and 1.28 gallons. However, they must have a 2-inch flush valve with flapper prongs and an overflow tube with at least an 8-inch height. To ensure optimum flush performance, please carefully follow these instructions, making all the necessary adjustments. Although no tools may be necessary to install the Aqua Mizer system, it is recommended that you have these items handy in case you encounter unexpected problems. Before you install the Aqua Mizer system, it is recommended that you flush the bowl 2 or 3 times to ensure that the toilet is draining properly. If it drains slowly, check for obstructions in the drain line. And if it flushes sluggishly, inspect the orifices under the bowl rim and ream out any accumulated calcium or other minerals that are clogging the openings. To begin the installation, turn off the water supply under the tank, then flush the bowl and sponge out the remaining water. Next, disconnect the water supply line. Remove the existing fill valve assembly by unbolting the locking nut under the tank and lifting out the valve. Have a small bucket available to collect any residual water in the tank. Then disconnect the flapper chain from the flush handle and remove the flapper. If the flush valve does not have flapper prongs or is brittle or cracked, it is recommended that you replace it with a new one. Please note that replacing the flush valve will require removal of the tank, and a replacement valve is not provided with the system. Measure the height of the flush valve from the bottom of the tank. If the overflow tube is taller than 9 inches, you have the option of cutting the tube down to 9 inches, which is preferred, or installing the supplied fill valve adapter. Before making any adjustments, remove the mounting nut and washer from the fill valve. To adjust the fill valve to the required height, locate and remove the white locking clip on the bottom section of the valve and twist a quarter turn to unlock the bottom section. Insert the unit in the valve opening in the bottom of the tank and set the height so the CL mark is 1 inch above the top of the overflow tube. Once you have the correct height, remove the valve from the tank, twist to relock the shaft, and reinsert the locking clip. Next, determine the direction of the spring attachment ring for the flush arm clip. For a round metal flush arm, connect the spring at the bottom. For all other flush arm styles, connect it on the side. Then slide the clip onto the flush arm. Before tightening the thumb screw, position the clip to align with the adjustment screw on the fill valve, and then tighten the thumb screw. Now correctly position the fill valve in the tank and hand tighten the mounting nut with the washer under the tank. Do not use a wrench, as over-tightening may crack the tank. If you're using the fill valve adapter, be sure to securely hand tighten all the components of the adapter to the fill valve to prevent leaking. It is important to adjust the slack in the fill valve chain that is attached to the flush arm clip. To check this, pull up on the fill valve shutoff arm. If the spring stretches, adjust for more slack in the chain until the spring tension is immediately relieved. You can also make slight adjustments to the chain tension by rotating the fill valve clockwise to increase chain slack or counterclockwise to decrease it. Be sure the fill valve does not come in contact with the flush valve, the tank wall, or the flush arm, and the mounting nut remains securely tight. You're now ready to reconnect the water supply line to the fill valve shank protruding under the tank. Before continuing, determine the water supply connection from this chart and use the appropriate assembly parts required to properly reconnect the water supply. Do not use plumber's putty to seal these fittings. The water supply must be installed as shown in this illustration to ensure a watertight connection. Use of the existing coupling nut or cone washer may result in water leakage. The water supply tube or pipe must extend at least a ½ inch inside the threaded shank of the valve. However, this does not apply to flanged tubing. Do not turn on the water supply until the refill tube is connected to the overflow tube or the control flush unit. To install the Aqua Mizer control flush unit, first determine the diameter of the flush valve overflow tube. If the tube is 1 inch, then the adapter sleeve will be required. Slide the adapter sleeve over the tube with the slot facing away from the flapper valve, and the top of the sleeve should be even with the top of the overflow tube. Flush valves with 1.25-inch diameter overflow tubes do not require the adapter sleeve. Next, connect the refill tube to the control flush unit spigot, sliding it up through the guide for correct positioning. Then slide the control flush unit down over the sleeve until it stops. Connect the flapper valve to the overflow tube, snapping the flapper arms onto the ears of the tube. To connect the flush chain, slide the clip into the nearest hole on the end of the flush arm lever. While the flush arm lever is in the lowest set position and the flapper valve is properly seated, adjust the chain to have minimum slack, no more than 1/4 inch, and locking the ball chain on the end coupler. Leave at least 1 inch of extra chain. Make sure this adjustment is correct before cutting off any remaining chain. Connect the refill tube to the fill valve connector near the top of the fill valve. Cut the tube to the length as necessary, making sure there are no kinks in the refill tube. Once the tube is securely connected on both ends, open the water supply valve on the incoming water line under the tank and let the tank refill. As the tank begins to fill, check the flapper, wetting the seal, and slightly adjusting the seating as necessary. Once the tank is full and the fill valve turns off, flush the toilet and observe that the flush arm pulls the fill valve's inner float down to expel water in the outer cup and turns the fill valve on. If this does not happen, decrease slack in the chain. Flush the toilet again and observe that the flush arm lifts the flapper valve up and allows the control flush unit to lock the chain in place. Rotating the control flush unit adjustment screw counterclockwise to increase or clockwise to decrease the amount of water used per flush. Repeat this step a few times to ensure proper installation and adjust the float height for best flush results. Congratulations! You've just installed the Aqua Mizer flush system, the most efficient toilet tank system available. For maximum performance, here are some troubleshooting and performance tips. If the fill valve does not shut off after flushing, the chain may be too tight and not allowing the float to rise inside the float cup. Adjust the chain for more slack. If the tank does not fill promptly, the flapper may not be seated properly. Check that it moves up and down properly and sits squarely on the flush valve opening. If the flush arm handle is very short or bent, you may want to replace it with a longer one for best performance. Never use in-tank toilet bowl cleaners. Products that contain bleach, chlorine, or other caustic chemicals can damage tank components, causing flooding and property damage. Use of such products will void the Aqua Mizer product warranty. Over-tightening the mounting nut under the tank can cause the tank to crack. Do not use plumber's putty on any of the fittings. And remember, for best results, Aqua Mizer recommends installation be done by a licensed plumber.